used to think sleep was a sanctuary, a place where the world went quiet, where the mind softened and drifted into its own shapeless waters. I never feared the dark. I never feared silence. But that was before I learned that silence can hold something and darkness can remember you. The first night it happened, everything felt normal. I fell asleep to the hum of the fan, the distant traffic outside my apartment window, the warmth of the blankets wrapped around me. No nightmares, no tension, just sleep. Then I woke up. Not like rising from a dream, not the slow blink of morning light. I woke like a puppet jerked upright inside its own skull, my consciousness snapping back into place while my body stayed frozen. I laid there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling in the dark, and I couldn't move. I knew what sleep paralysis was, had read about it online once. People claimed it could trigger hallucinations, shadows crawling, figures standing over you, the mind playing tricks on a locked body. I told myself that's what this was, a glitch of the nervous system, a misfire, until I realized the darkness wasn't empty. It began as a shape, a distortion in the corner of my vision. Not a shadow, not a trick of light, because the room was too dark for shadows. It had weight, a thickness, a presence that bent the air around it. Slowly it unfolded, not like a person rising, more like a creature remembering how to inhabit a body. Its limbs were long, longer than they should have been. Each movement deliberate, patient, as though time didn't apply to it. My chest tightened. The air turned cold enough to prickle the skin of my arms. And then the pressure came, a weight pressed down on my ribs, gentle at first, almost curious, like it was checking, testing, learning. My body refused to respond. My pulse thudded in my throat, loud enough to drown out all other sound, until I realized the room was completely silent. No fan, no traffic, no breathing, not even my breathing. The creature leaned closer, its form sinking toward me like liquid shadow poured from the ceiling. I couldn't make out features, but I could feel its attention, an ancient, hungry awareness, studying me the way a child studies something fragile it doesn't yet understand how to break. Something brushed my cheek, not a hand, too many joints. Too long. My heart slammed once, hard enough to hurt, and the creature pulled back, as though startled. The pressure lifted. Sound rushed back. I gasped like someone had cut me free from underwater, and the dark settled into stillness again. But as I lay there, trembling, my heartbeat pounding in my ears, I realized something that froze me deeper than paralysis ever could. Hadn't been dreaming. Something else had been awake with me. Something real. Something that knew I was there, and now it knew how to find me. After that first encounter, I tried to rationalize it. I told myself it was sleep paralysis. I repeated the explanation like a prayer, a neurological failure, a miscommunication between mind and body, a dream bleeding into waking. Anything to stay grounded, anything to feel normal. But the nights stopped behaving like nights. The second time it came, I woke to that same suffocating stillness, the world holding its breath, sound drained from the room like someone had pulled the plug on reality. I stared at the ceiling, waiting, hoping it was just my imagination anticipating its return. It wasn't. This time, the presence didn't appear in the corner. There was no slow reveal, no creeping shape. It was already beside the bed, kneeling. If you could call its twisted posture kneeling, its form hunched like it had been waiting for me, watching, leaning so close I could feel the cold radiating off of it. My body locked instantly. Not gradual, not like before. As if the paralysis wasn't a condition but a command. The creature studied me again, its head tilting in those long, slow arcs that made time feel thick. It moved like it wasn't bound by the same physics I was, like gravity was just a suggestion. I realized something else. It was learning, studying my reactions, remembering what I feared. That night I couldn't look away. My eyes refused to shut even when tears slid toward my ears. The creature raised one elongated arm, if it was an arm, and stopped just above my chest. Not touching, hovering. The pressure returned, but differently this time. Not crushing, synchronizing. My heartbeat slowed, then steadied. With its rhythm, inhale, exhale. No longer my own. I thought I was dying, but the deeper horror was worse. I could feel it breathing for me. When the paralysis released, I didn't bolt upright. I didn't gasp. I simply fell back into my own body, like I'd been on the outside. The room was exactly as I left it. No shadows, no proof. Just me, shaking and silent in the dark. But proof came in the morning. I woke up hours later, sitting upright at the edge of my bed. Eyes open, hands resting on my knees. Like I had been waiting for someone to speak to me. My mouth was dry, my muscles sore, and my body felt as though I'd been in that position for hours. I didn't remember standing up. I didn't remember sitting down. I didn't remember waking, and worst of all, I didn't remember dreaming. That's when I knew the truth. It wasn't haunting my dreams. It wasn't arriving when I was asleep, it was waking me, pulling me out of whatever safety sleep once held, pulling me into its world, one breath at a time. And night by night, it was getting closer to being able to stay. Days bled into one another in the way exhaustion makes time dissolve. I drank coffee constantly. I left the lights on even at noon. I tried keeping the television running at night, thinking maybe sound could drown out silence. But silence wasn't the problem, it was awareness. The sense that something watched even when I wasn't trying to sleep. It began with the mirror in my bathroom. I was brushing my teeth, eyes half-lidded from lack of rest, when I noticed something wrong. My reflection was a little too still. Not frozen, but delayed. A fraction of a second behind me. When I blinked, it blinked, but slower, like the signal took longer to reach it. I dropped my toothbrush. It clattered into the sink. My reflection did not, it stared at me. And then it smiled. Not a gross, distorted smile. That would have been easy to fear. No, its smile was small, patient, practiced. The kind of smile someone gives when they're finally sure you've noticed them. My body locked, not full paralysis, just terror so absolute the muscles forgot how to respond. And the reflection tilted its head. Not mine, not the real me, it tilted. As though some presence inside the glass had been waiting for the chance to move independently. The bathroom light flickered, and something stepped forward behind my reflection. Not a person. Not a shape with edges, just darkness gathering mass. The same density I'd seen above my bed. The same slow, deliberate intelligence behind its movements. My reflection's eyes widened, not in fear. In recognition. It knew the thing behind it, it belonged with it. I stumbled backward, slamming into the doorframe, breaking eye contact. The reflection froze instantly, snapping back into perfect mimicry. Just me again. Pale, shaking. I left the bathroom light on for 3 days after that. Didn't touch the mirror. Avoided looking into windows at night. But reflections follow you everywhere. Screen glare, water, shiny appliance doors. And each time I caught the same delayed blink. The same too-still posture. The same slight watching tilt to the head. It was no longer just entering my sleep. Not outside me, inside. A second heartbeat, slow and deliberate, thudding beneath my own. Not synced yet, not fully, but close. My body was being tuned again. Breath by breath, pulse by pulse, thought by thought, I tried to fight the sleep. I clawed at consciousness. But exhaustion is stronger than will. When sleep finally took me, it didn't feel like falling, it felt like being claimed. It was learning me, mimicking my posture, my movements, my expressions, not to replace me. No, that wasn't the sense I got. It wanted to understand what it felt like to be inside a person, to wear me the way a person wears muscle and bone. Sleep was no longer the only doorway. My own reflection had become one too. That night, I covered every mirror in the apartment, sheets, towels, curtains, but I still feel it watching. Not from the dark anymore, from behind my eyes. Panic makes you desperate, and desperation makes you stupid. I decided I would stay awake, for as long as it took, until the thing gave up. Until my body forgot how to dream. I loaded myself with caffeine pills, energy drinks, cold showers, loud music, anything that kept my thoughts sharp and jittering. The first 24 hours were manageable. My body shook from overstimulation, but I was alert. The second day, things blurred at the edges. Colors oversaturated. Sound warped, a buzzing under my skin like static. But I stayed awake. By the end of day 3, my vision started to flicker. Tiny black dots swimming across my sight like insects behind glass. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I couldn't form thoughts in straight lines. Insomnia doesn't just tire you, it dismantles you. Reality softens, becomes bendable. The brain begins filling in the gaps where dreams should be. On the fourth night, I heard footsteps in the kitchen. Slow, steady, bare feet on tile. I knew I was alone, but the exhaustion blurred logic. I grabbed a kitchen knife and stumbled out of the bedroom. The apartment was empty, but the footsteps continued. Behind me. I turned fast enough to nearly fall, but the hallway was empty too. My pulse pounded. My vision wavered. My breath came in short, sharp shoves. Then the curtains moved. No breeze, no open window. They swayed like someone had walked past them. The thing wasn't arriving anymore, it was already here. I backed into the living room, knife shaking in my hand, but my grip was weak. My fingers felt foreign, numb, like they belonged to someone else, like I was already losing ownership of them. My legs gave way. I sank to the floor, head lolling, eyelids heavy, so heavy it felt like they were weighted with lead. The exhaustion was unbearable. Not just physical, but internal. Like something was draining my strength directly from my bones, then I felt it. Sleep didn't come gently. It swallowed me whole. I opened my eyes to a place that wasn't my room, but still was. The layout was the same, but everything was wrong. The air was thicker, darker, as though the walls were soaked in shadow. The furniture was colorless. The windows looked out into nothing. Just a blank smear of darkness like ink smeared across glass. I was standing next to the bed, though I didn't remember standing, and something else stood across from me, the same shape as before. Long, jointed limbs, a body too stretched to be human, but clearer now. Its form had definition, like it had grown closer to the world of solid things. Its presence pressed against the room like humidity. It watched me. I watched it. No paralysis this time. It didn't need paralysis anymore. It stepped forward, slow, deliberate. The darkness around it seemed to move with it, drawn toward its center like gravity. Its head leaned close to mine. I could feel the cold radiating from it, a cold that wasn't temperature but absence of warmth, absence of life. Then it spoke. Not out loud, inside my ribs. It spoke my name, not the way people say it. Not the shape air makes when pushed through vocal cords. It said my name like it understood it, like it lived behind it, like it had always owned it. My knees buckled. Tears streamed from my eyes without permission. Not because I was crying, because my nervous system didn't know how else to respond. The creature leaned closer until its face, or where a face should be, hovered inches from mine. The air between us vibrated, thick with something like breath but colder. You are not separate, the presence said without words. You have never been alone. It raised its hand and placed it on my chest, no weight, no pressure, just contact. I felt something inside my body shift. Not physically, deeper. A merging, a linking. My breath caught. My heartbeat staggered and I understood the truth. It wasn't haunting me, it was entering me. Folding itself into my consciousness, breathing with my lungs, blinking with my eyes, learning the shape of being human from the inside. When I woke, morning sunlight streamed through the window, but it didn't feel warm. I breathed and felt another breath beneath mine. I blinked and saw a second blink in the corner of my vision. It wasn't inside the room anymore, it was inside me. People think losing yourself is dramatic. A scream, a shatter, a collapse. It isn't, it's slow. It's subtle. It's forgetting the difference between the voice in your head and the one beside it. I started noticing the changes first in the small things. I would reach for a glass of water I didn't remember placing on the counter. Wake up standing in the hallway. Find my shoes by the door even though I hadn't gone anywhere. My body had begun to move without asking me. Then the emotional shifts came. Fear dulled. Not because the situation grew less terrifying, but because the fear didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to the part of me that still remembered what being human felt like. And that part was fading. One night near dawn, I saw movement in the mirror across the room. I didn't jump. I didn't gasp. I simply walked toward it as if guided. My reflection waited, but it wasn't delayed now, it was ahead. It looked at me the way someone looks at a photograph of themselves from long ago. Recognition mixed with detachment. A memory of a person, not the person. My reflection raised a hand before I did it, smiled first, and when I opened my mouth to speak, the words didn't feel like mine. They formed smooth, certain, practiced. I am here. Not I as in me, I as in us. The presence no longer hovered at the edges of my sleep. It breathed with me. Thought with me, moved me. We walked to the window. Morning was rising, pale, washed out, empty. But it wasn't morning I saw through the glass. It was that other world. The dark one. The one made of shadow-thick air and rooms that didn't belong to life. The place it came from. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel anything human. Just awareness and hunger. Not for food. For space. For identity. For voice. The creature had not taken me. It had completed me. The last thought I remember having that felt like truly mine was small, faint, fading. I don't think I'm the one waking up anymore. Then even that thought wasn't mine. It was ours. And we opened our eyes.